Welcome everybody. This is Desi Vijay, NorthSouth National Team member and a coordinator for webinars. Glad to see you all here today. We have a set of Geo pros ready to talk to you. This is our fourth MTP session. We wish to thank you for all your support and encouragement during this series in the past. If you had attended any of our previous nationals in various cities, you would have watched these Meet the Pro interactive sessions with all the big league champions, winners like Scripps Champions, National Geo Champions, and etc. This is our attempt to bring it to all North-South community and then all the contestants to meet and talk to those pros. Today we have Atreya, Nihar, Saket, and Sravya with us today to talk to us about their experience and answer your questions. I'm really glad to have this happen today, and welcome to yet another exciting webinar. Before we proceed further, let me get through our usual housekeeping comments. To answer all your questions, yes, this webinar is getting recorded. We will send you a link in a day or two. If you want to listen to any of our previous webinars, you may have an option to view from YouTube channel. You will find the link for those playlists in the link handouts in your webinar. Please download and keep it. You may also send an email to webinars@northsouth.ascom for any specific recording. We would really like to make the webinar more interactive, but with such a large attendance, it really becomes cumbersome to do it. If you have any questions you want to ask the whole panel or a specific person, please type them out in the questions tab. We will collect them and then ask on your behalf after the initial introductions are completed. You may start posting them right now. However, please be patient and do not keep repeating the questions. It only makes it harder for us to wade through the whole list. We would try to answer all your questions, but however, there is a time limit we have to adhere to, an hour and a half, which even some people think it's too long. If you have a questions not answered, it may be a similar question that was asked and answered, or we simply running out of time. If you feel that your questions were not satisfactorily answered, please send us an email with your questions and we will try to get the response from the panel and post it to you or to the group. Before you leave, please take a moment to fill in the feedback questions. That will help us in to make it more friendly and adaptive to you. It also will help the panel, particularly those youngsters, about how well they did and what can they do to improve. I really appreciate your help. Thank you. Our regional contest registrations started, and we are all gearing up towards many info sessions, deep dive sessions, workshops in various subjects. Please visit NorthSouth website for more information. In the handout section attached, you also have a link for this web page, and please review that. And the page gets updated constantly, so please visit it periodically. Finally, we want to continue to offer various topics for the general interest to you in our webinar sessions. So if you think of a topic, or if you can be a presenter, or if you know somebody who can be a presenter for the topic, please let us know. We will take it up from there and then pursue that further. Thank you for listening. Let's move on to our scheduled webinar program. However, before I introduce the panel, our special guest to you, I got a small geo quiz I want to share with you. Of course, if I know, then I'm sure you all know already, or you can easily Google it. Anyway, let me ask this. We had a terrible cold weather and snow even in the deep south last week in our country, causing big havoc. Do you know at which strange place did it snow in April 1979? Think about it. We can talk about it later. We have with us the current president of NorthSouth Foundation, Dr. Balu Natarajan, MD, and Ms. Savitha Rajiv is a long-time NorthSouth volunteer and currently the Geo core team leader. Balu Natarajan has been with us, contributing to us for a long time. In fact, he was the first pronouncer of the first national NorthSouth Spelling Bee in 1993. He maintains a board certification in internal medicine, sports medicine, and hospice, and palliative medicine. And Dr. Natarajan has the distinction of, as I said, the first Indian American ever to win a Scripps National Spelling Bee Championship in 1985. I welcome Dr. Balu to introduce Ms. Savitha Rajiv and the panel. Thank you, here is Dr. Balu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Desi Vijay, for organizing these with consistency and regularity. I'm going to introduce Savitha, and she will introduce our panel. Savitha, as you mentioned, has been a volunteer at NorthSouth for almost 18 years, and her association with NorthSouth began when her two sons participated in our competitions way back when they were in kindergarten and all the way through high school. She has a master's in computer science from Tufts University, and she is all about empathy. She is the executive director of a nonprofit organization for the disabled called Samarthanam USA. She is currently the geography core team lead and also the director of communications at NorthSouth. Savitha.
Thank you, Balu, for that introduction. I'm really humbled to be a part of this organization and to be associated with such an esteemed panel of young men and women over here. Desi, would you like to start the PowerPoint?
Okay. So I have to, once again, I'm not a presenter still.
I can share it if you want.
Yeah.
You want me to? Okay.
Can you, yeah.
I'm assuming everybody can see my screen. Just wanted to take a minute to pay our respects to our young Anush Biram, who lost his life in February, on February 10th. He, in addition to participating in the NSF competitions, back to volunteer as a youth coach and was currently in the math coaching program. He was also an Eagle Scout and on his way to reaching his dream of becoming a surgeon. We were very shocked and upset that Anush lost his life, was cut short during the Texas weather incidents. And the entire NorthSouth family sends our condolences to the Biram family. We will always remember him. He will be honored as the first member of the NorthSouth Coaching Hall of Fame. So I just wanted to take a few seconds to honor him and pay our respects with silence. Thank you. So today, as you all know, we are in the midst of these young champions who have reached great heights that not many have been able to reach. And the most special part of them is they have all come back to NorthSouth where they got their beginning to give back with coaching, the running the info sessions, conducting the workshops, and doing whatever they can to help us move the geography program. So I will introduce them one by one, and then we will have an opportunity to speak with them. First is Atreya Milana. I have had the pleasure of working with every one of them. over the last couple of years, and I can tell you they're amazing individuals. Atreya is currently an 8th grader from Lexington, Massachusetts, where I come from. He is the 2019 National Geographic Bee runner-up to Nihar, who I will be introducing in a minute. In addition to being the runner-up of the National Geographic Bee, he was also the winner of the National Geographic Olympiad, and NorthSouth National Junior and Senior Geography Bees. And he has various interests in addition to geography. He enjoys soccer, math, science. He's currently a mentor at the Geoid Foundation of another nonprofit organization that is helping promote geography literacy. He also conducted workshops for Massachusetts a couple years ago, and we are thrilled to have Atreya here as part of the panel. Welcome, Atreya. Then we have Nihar. Many of you might know Nihar already. Nihar is currently a high school sophomore from Austin, Texas. And Nihar, I hope you guys and your friends and family are all safe during this Texas weather issue that we've had. Nihar was the co-champion of the 2016 Scripps National Spelling Bee. And he was the youngest Scripps champion at that time. He didn't stop over there, and he continued his second passion of geography. And in 2019, he became the National Geographic champion. He has been volunteering with NorthSouth for the coaching programs, as well as now he for the Scripps coaching program, and now he's putting together something for geography too. Welcome, Nihar. Saket Pochiraju is a high school junior from Ohio. He represented Ohio 3 times, so he was the Ohio State champion for the National Geographic Bee. And participated in the International Geography Bee as a middle schooler and became the champion in 2018. He also won the National North-South Senior Geography Bee. He continues his fascination with geography through North-South volunteering and developing programs for the organization, both locally as well as nationally with online programs. He and a group of his friends co-founded the GeoGenius Foundation, basically to encourage students to learn geography and increase their passion in that subject. And finally, we have Sravya. Sravya is a student currently at Harvard. She's on the pre-med track. She has been actively participating in several competitions at NorthSouth, and she has siblings who are currently involved in participating in the NorthSouth competitions. She was the winner of the 2014 North Carolina State Geography Bee and won the most awards at the 2018 International Geography Bee. So she, as I said, she was a former North-South student and has come back to volunteer in various aspects of the organization. And I wanted to say that last time when recently we had the info session for geography, I was supposed to do the presentation, and I felt like kids will feel they can connect a lot better with the younger generation. So I gave Sravya a call the night before and asked her if she would be willing to run the info session. And in spite of her busy schedule, she immediately agreed and ran a very effective session. So like I said, we have a great panel of youth, and thank you guys all for joining. I'll stop my presentation now, and I'm going to give the kids or the panelists to do their own introduction, a short introduction about themselves. And I request each of you to add one favorite geography fact. We'll start with Atreya. Go ahead, Atreya.
Thank you, Savitha Auntie. My name's Atreya Milana, and I'm a current 8th grader at Diamond Middle School in Lexington, Massachusetts. I was the 2019 National Geographic Bee runner-up, and I have been participating in NSF competitions since 1st grade, and I've also won the senior and junior geography bees at NSF. Apart from geography, which is one of my favorite passions, I also love to study science and math. And also in my free time, I love to watch and play sports, especially soccer and basketball. And I think my favorite geography fact would probably be the capital of Burkina Faso is Ouagadougou, just because the name sounds pretty interesting.
Thank you, Atreya. Welcome. Next, we go to Nihar.
Do I have permission to? I don't think I have permission to share my.
Yes.
We'll come to the screens in a minute. Just do your short intro,
okay.
Nihar, and then share a favorite geo fact.
All right. Here, let me. Okay. I'm Nihar Janga. I would say so in terms of geography, like the place where I would start is like after 5th grade, after I won the spelling bee. I realized that a lot of the things that I learned were related to that, and you'll see that later. And yeah, so I just went on that journey of learning about the world and all its cultures, and I won the GeoBee in 2019. And again, I'll go through that process and everything later, but that's pretty much it. And then now I'm interested in neuroscience mainly, but I do other things like rowing. And yeah, my favorite geography fact, I can't really think of them one on the spot because there's like so much. But I guess the main thing I was interested in is like learning about the people. Like the people always fascinated me, like how there's just like so many different cultures in the world, and they have so many different ways of doing things, and that always just fascinated me.
Thank you, Nihar. Welcome. Saket?
Hi, everyone. My name is Saket Pochiraju, and I'm a junior at Olentangy Orange High School in Lewis Center, which is a suburb in the Columbus area, Columbus, Ohio. I've always had a pretty deep fascination with the world around me, and whether it was through maps or atlases or any kinds of things, like many of the people on this panel can relate, it was just interesting to me. So when I found out about the geography bee through NSF, I guess that's where it sort of took off. That interest turned into a really deep passion, and I began competing in contests. So it was really a journey going from my first few NSF contests way back in 2012 to then slowly making the top 10 sometimes, winning the senior geography bee when it was here in Columbus in 2015, and then making that journey in other competitions like the National Geographic bee, representing my state, and then winning medals at the international stage. So it's been a wild ride, and I'm just happy to be here and be able to share that experience with everyone else. And in terms of favorite geography facts, I'd say this one is really random, but one thing that I found out is that the country with the highest percentage of people with blonde hair outside of Europe is the Solomon Islands. That's a very random fact, but there we go.
Thank you, Saket. That was a fact that I did not think would come up. That's funny. Sravya.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, there isn't too much I can say about my love for geography that hasn't been said by the other panelists. I think the people that love geography or compete in geography competitions tend to really have this passion for learning about the world, learning about cultures, about different places, things like that. And I am no different. I am a little bit older than the other panelists. I'm currently a college sophomore at Harvard. And I guess my geography journey started in 2013, I believe it was, with NSF. I was in 6th grade. And then NSF, National Geographic Bee, and then International Geographic Olympiad. It's been a wild ride, to use the word Saket's used. Yeah, I think I'm in this unique position on this panel in the sense that it's been a couple of years since I have competed in the geography competitions. My last competition was in 11th grade, or the summer between 11th and 12th grade, which was almost 3 years at this point. And I've also been an NSF coach for the Geographic Bee. Many years ago, Atria was actually in one of my classes, so it's very exciting to see how far he's come and where he's going as well. So yeah, I'm very excited to be on the panel today. My fun fact actually is kind of similar to what I will be talking about in my presentation, which is why study geography. And it is the Bay of Fundy tidal situation. I don't know how many of you guys know about this, but basically the Bay of Fundy has the biggest tidal waves, like up to 50 feet. And then parts of the year, the river that flows into it, the St. John's River, actually flows back because of how big the waves are, the tidal waves. And it's really interesting because I'm in college now, as I said, and my roommate is from that part of Canada. And she was just so surprised that I knew about these tidal waves, because when you learn geography, you're really able to connect with people all over the world, and everyone is very surprised to know about the things you know about their country or their culture. So I'm obviously a very big proponent of competing and learning about geography. So thank you.
Thank you, Sravya, and welcome everyone. Before we get to the questions, we have asked the panelists to do like a short 5-minute presentation that shows what the journey was like, how did they start, how were they motivated, what did they use for their study aids and things like that. So if the panelists are ready, I'd like to call on Atreya. And Atreya can share your screen. Daisy, would you be able to share?
I didn't make a presentation per se, but I can just talk about
that's
like 5 minutes just about my journey in the geography bee and how NSF really helped me. So I kind of first started geography. I first got to know about the geography bee through NSF in 1st grade. So at the time I was living in Denver, Colorado. It was the Denver chapter, and I was more of a spelling bee person at that time. So I was participating in spelling bee competitions, but my friend used to like really like geography, and I sat through the oral rounds, which was in like this big auditorium there, and I listened to all of the questions, and I was surprised that I could answer a few questions there. So I kind of decided as kind of like a passion to participate in the geography bee next year, to just like kind of try it out. And the next year in 2nd grade, when we actually moved to Boston, I tried out the regional geography bee chapter, and I surprisingly got 1st place in the chapter. I didn't know most of the questions, but I did my best. So, and I went to nationals that year, but I didn't really know what to study, and I didn't really have an organized way of studying. So that year at nationals, I didn't do great. I think I got 20th place that year in NSF nationals. So that kind of motivated me to come back and do better next year. And that was kind of where my geography bee passion really took off. So over the next like 2 or 3 years, when I was in like 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, I continued to participate mainly in NSF competitions. Yeah, as Sravya told, I took the NSF coaching classes for 2 years. I believe I was coached by her in 3rd grade. And yeah, my interest really took off from there. I really learned a lot from those classes. And yeah, NSF really provided a stepping stone for other competitions in middle school, like the National Geographic Bee and the International Geography Bee that I did. So I'm really thankful for all that NSF has provided for me, and it's really helped me on my way to a second place finish in the 2019 National Geographic Bee.
Awesome. Thank you, Atreya. That was really good. Nihar?
Yeah, I think I gave the presenter role to Atreya because I had it before, so Atreya,
Okay.
if you could.
Yeah, I made you a presenter,
Nihar?
Nihar.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry. All right. Well, like I said before, my main interest in geography came from. Keep switching back for some reason. Sorry. My main interest for geography came from after doing the spelling bee. So I came across these words like haggis, which is a Scottish dish, Kanak, which is a people in New Caledonia, which is an island in the Pacific, Nouakchott, which is a capital of Mauritania, and this was actually a word I missed in spelling bee regionals, which really motivated me to learn about like cultures and stuff like that. This is a dance in Peru. And so whenever I came across like these different cultures, foods, or places, I just really wanted to learn about the world. Personally, while I was doing spelling bee, I would kind of look at the geography bee and be like, who would want to do that? But after I kind of did more and more of the spelling bee and learned that words are not just about words, but learning like the story behind them and the people that are involved with it, I really wanted to learn more about the world. And then after that, like while I was studying for the geography bee, I realized it really helps you just learn about cultures. Like imagine if you were a culture in a different country and like you're just isolated and nobody knows about you, like that would be such a horrible feeling. And I feel like doing the geography bee kind of gives justice to all the people in the world, especially when we're in a society where stereotypes and stuff like that exist. I think it's really important to be a global citizen that, like Sravya said, really understands other people for who they really are, instead of just like not learning about the issues and just carrying on with your day. And another motivation was obviously like setting the record of being the only one to win both of them. But that obviously wasn't as important as the other two. And then in terms of the resources, like if you guys want to take a screenshot or a snapshot of these, basically I divided them into sections. So in the top left here, you have the atlases that I use. In the bottom left, you have like the kind of current news, kind of miscellaneous things. Here you have the magazines. And then here you have like the kind of other books I use. And then you have GeoBee City, which is not really run anymore, but I'm sure you can find geography communities like Saket GeoGenius. And then obviously you have these pictures to go along with that. And then this is more specifically about the study process I was talking about. So you have all these resources, you analyze them, you don't memorize them, you analyze them, actually understand what's going on behind those things and how they can be applied to the world. And then I would make questions out of them, and then I would make like mock bees or participate in mock bees. I remember Atreya was there every time and he would beat me, and I was really happy that I beat him in the geography bee, but don't worry, we're still friends. And then my family would also quiz me, and then I would revise this entire process, even if it was the same material, because obviously you can forget things. And then this is just the more like textual format of that. So whenever you're studying maps, kind of build a mental picture of the location, size, and relations. And something that really helped me to remember those is to learn what's going on in those locations, like what's major in those locations. So it gave me kind of a sense of like importance and significance in the world. So they weren't just like dots on a map I was studying. There were actual things that were happening around me. And then I would make questions on my own. And then in terms of the geo challenge, which is much more important in like today's geography bee compared to previously, you need to do geo challenges, which are like really critical thinking. So you need to be able to use the geographic knowledge you have to like solve issues. And I kind of made my own, and I would like look at issues in the world and come up with solutions. And yeah, that should be it.
Thank you, Nihar. Great presentation, and it's really great to have an insight of what your journey was. In the questions, we will go over the questions later on, but Anirudhan Ranga shared a fact that in 1979, snow fell in the Sahara. So that was very interesting to see that it is one of the biggest deserts today, but it did snow over there. Like, I think Nihar can relate to that, but Texas was barely getting any snow, and now they've been inundated by snow and literally bringing the entire life to a halt. Saket, do you have a presentation? Would you speak?
Yeah, I have
Let
a
me just
presentation.
let
You
me
do.
give let me give Saket.
Um,
Yeah, we can see your screen, Saket.
okay. Trying to hit full screen mode here. So instead of words, I just put a geography icon, I guess. But okay, so my geography journey, like similar to most people here, it was always pretty obvious from the start that I was interested and fascinated with the things that were happening around me. So when I first got an atlas when I was around 4 or 5 years old, I was really hooked to it. And it was really interesting to see the tiny, tiny blurbs on all the different cultures or the maps and where they would lead. And when we were going on road trips or things like that, trying to follow our path on the map when we didn't really have Google Maps that much, but doing things like that was what really, it was really enjoyable to me as a little kid. So when we found out about NSF, like I said, I definitely thought that it was an interesting thing to do. So we found out about NSF when I was in second grade, like I said, in 2012. And like Nihar and Atreya were saying, at first they were like the math and spelling contests, and you think that's really neat. So those were the ones that I really tried and thought I wanted to do at first. But when we found out about geography, I thought it was a pretty cool thing we could try because I never heard of a geography bee before. So I did participate in my first regionals then, and surprisingly, all the map reading or atlas skimming I did for fun when I was little, that turned out to help me. And I actually placed second in that regionals, which was, it was a surprise, but it was a really nice one. And I think that's how my journey started in terms of the geography bee. And this picture here, it was, I guess here's a question for all of you. It was when we were at the National Air Force Museum at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So I guess in the chat, if everyone can, you know where the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is and where this was? Which city or state? So that's a fun question, I guess. So again, maps, globes, and then traveling. It was a great opportunity that I had when I was little to go to all these different places, whether it was going to visit our family in India and being able to stop over at places on the way, or whether it was locally within our state, within the Midwest region. It was a great experience. And once you have that interest, once you've identified that, it's really easy to connect it with anything else, like just about anything else. So if the kids watching this right now, if you guys are old enough, you'll know that the Nintendo Wii was a really big part of our childhood growing up. And even in the Wii Weather channel, they would show you the weather for all the different places in the world, right? So I would have so much fun just scrolling for hours in the Wii Weather channel app, looking at different places. And it was just fascinating to me to see how they were doing and how different that place was from just the small suburb we're living in right here. And even with things like board games, I think we played a international version of Monopoly. So instead of places like Jersey City or the Boardwalk, there were different countries. So that was just another fun thing that just led to the fascination growing. So all of that led me to definitely identify my interest. I knew that this was something I was really passionate about, and I found my avenue of it through the Geography Bee to keep participating and to start really studying, really learning more as much as I can, right? And throughout my journey, geography was something that was really special to me, but especially at my downtimes. So when I didn't do as well as I wanted at a competition, or I didn't succeed at something that I really hoped for, I would wonder sometimes, and sometimes my friends would ask me, why are you studying geography, or why are you spending so much time on this? Like, what are you getting out of this? And sometimes I was just in a flow, right? So I would think, well, it's just what I love to do, and I found something to give me direction, so I'm just doing it. But later, especially when my Geography Bee career sort of came to a close, I think that's when I really started realizing all the studying I did through the GeoBee, through this learning, all these hours of learning, which to me was just fun. What that really was building a knowledge base. And once you look at it that way, you realize that you use that knowledge base to really build upon that and then connect it with anything else in the world you're really looking to do. So just at the basic level, I guess these are some examples of connecting geography with other things that I had in mind to share, just so everyone could try looking at it that way. So this slide is about the bird migrations. So if you ever paid attention really outside just during the seasons, it wouldn't take much noticing to see that the birds migrate, or you don't see as many at least, during the colder months. And you see here all the different flyways, and what a cool concept that is, of birds migrating to warmer climates and warmer weather areas during the winter months, where there are more resources for them to breed and for them to live. So, and you see there how, and this one is predicting bird migration based on the weather of a state, which really fascinates me, how you can show all that on a map and how much you can take away from that. So through this, you see how weather and the physical geography of a place can change so much for birds and have them migrate and make thousands of miles of journeys across the world, which is just a beautiful phenomenon to see. That's just the physical geography. And if you take something a bit more complex than just bird migrations, here are blue zones. So what these are were that there was a team of researchers who were trying to map, they were doing demographics work, and they were mapping the concentrations of how long people are living and how many centenarians there are in different places along the world. So, and a centenarian is someone who's living past the age of 100, which is incredible. So they did that, and what they found through their work was these blue zones, these certain areas where they found that the people in these areas were really living significantly longer than others. And there were these concentrated hotspots. So Loma Linda, California, the island of Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa, Japan, places like that. And through doing that, they were also able to identify some similar characteristics in their lifestyles, regardless of all how far away they were from each other, all the differences in their culture and things like that. They were still able to find and pinpoint these characteristics that led to this longevity in life. And those can be taken as life lessons and things we should be better on. So exercising or different things like diet. So it's really incredible how you can just take a simple fascination with something or trying to explore something and map it and then come out with this on how and relate it to food, exercise, and some lessons that people can all take away to try to sustain better lives. And I think the final example was in a field that's gotten really relevant over this past year, epidemiology. So in recent years, some scientists they've noticed changes especially in Nairobi concerning a certain virus that's spread by the Plasmodium parasites, which are carried by mosquitoes. So, and that's especially prevalent in tropical climates and areas like these. So another question for you people in the chat, if you want to answer, which virus am I talking about? Even though I guess it's sort of on the slide now, but the trend they were noticing in Nairobi was that Nairobi, if you know about the geography of the place, it's located at a higher elevation, and malaria is usually noticed more at lower elevations just because it's warmer there, and more at coastal regions just because of the climate. So you see how geography really affects the spread of malaria in places like these. So especially in Kenya, if you're taking that on their Lake Victoria shore or on their Indian Ocean coast, it's really noticeable, and it's much more of a problem because of the physical geography and the landscape and the weather of that place. But what they're noticing in Nairobi recently is that even though it's at a higher elevation, they're seeing more problems with Nairobi recently. They're noticing even more problems with malaria there. And that's a really interesting trend that they're using geography to analyze and really think about. And it's incredible because that research could be really, really useful and really big, because malaria, as you may know, it affects hundreds of millions of people each year. So using geography and an understanding of that in connection with other interests, I'd say, to help millions and millions of people, that's amazing. That's fascinating. That's what really gets me excited. Even though I'm done with geography competitions and geography bees and stuff, I think that's the real treasure and where you can go with this.
Thank you, Saket. We'll come to GeoGenius in a little bit.
Okay.
So there were a couple things. The parents and the students who are attending the session wanted to know the 2 questions. They probably did not catch it. So if you're able to look at the questions, you can post the 2 questions that you had posed during your presentation. I know there are a couple responses over there, so you can take a look at that too. I think with Saket's presentation, you can see the passion for geography and how you can go in depth with any area that you take and continue your education in any particular field, right? Whether it's weather related or the bird migration or the viruses that affect various areas across the world. So thank you so much, Saket, for that great presentation. Sravya?
Yeah, Saket, can you give me presenter?
Yeah, I will make you.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Did you get it?
Okay, yes, it should work now. Perfect. I believe you should be able to see what I'm presenting.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. So I will try to distinguish myself a little bit from all the other panelists just because, it's so obvious to see the passion everyone else has for geography and the resources they've used and all that. But I think I'll talk a little bit about how geography has impacted my life and how I even first became involved in geography. So Savitha Aunty talked a little bit about the different geography competitions I did, different things I've won and the people I've coached, stuff like that. But as you can see, I started my geography journey seriously in 2014 when I was actually a 7th grader. Before that, very similar to the other panelists, I loved geography. I watched the news. I loved watching Jeopardy. I had like a US map puzzle that I loved putting together when I was younger, but I never studied for geography in the sense that is necessary to win a competition or even to even compete seriously. So, and I actually have to thank NSF for that, which is why I feel very fortunate to be able to come and talk to many of you who may or may not know what geography is or are kind of interested but not sure quite yet. So my Geography B journey actually started with NSF Regionals in 2013 when I was in 6th grade. I was very much a math and science girl growing up, even though, as I mentioned, I loved geography as well. And it so happened that in that year, the schedule was, I believe, math competition was in the morning and science was in the later afternoon and geography was in the middle. And my mom was like, okay, I'll just sign up for math and science. Oh, there happens to be geography in the middle. She likes learning about the world. She likes Jeopardy and trivia facts, so might as well sign up for that as well. And I'm really, really fortunate and happy that she did because I kind of just went in expecting that I would be fine or I would do really, really well because, as I said, I watched the news every night and all that. And I realized that there was just a whole world that I didn't know. Like I knew capitals and some largest cities, but there's the cultural aspect, there's the physical geography, there's currencies, there's so many things that come with geography besides just watching the news or watching Jeopardy, as I'm sure you guys know. And in a very ironic twist of events, I actually went to nationals that year for 2 out of my 3 competitions. And I did really well in those 2, but those were not geography. I did math and science at nationals. And I think I barely missed the cutoff for geography by one point or something like that. And I was just very surprised. I thought I did well in the competition. So that kind of fueled my interest because I realized that there was so much more to the world that I hadn't yet realized or hadn't yet considered to learn or study. So that started this journey, that sparked this interest. And so that was the summer of 2013. And April of 2014 was when I won the state championship for North Carolina. So it was a very quick turnaround. And the reason I highlight this is obviously there are a lot of you who have started, geography since you were 2 years old or 4 years old or very young. Maybe your older sibling did geography, but you knows about it. So you were exposed to it at a young age. But even if you feel like you're very late in the game, like 7th grade that I was in, you really are not. Geography is something that you shouldn't just be doing for the competition, but even if you are just doing it for the competition, 7th and 8th grade is a perfectly great time to start. And even for the parents out there, this is not just for your kids. You should also be passionate and try to learn about the geography that maybe your kid is also studying as well. So my point is never too late to start. And so I think most of you probably know this, but I just thought I would put this on the slide. What should you study? As I mentioned, I knew capitals, major cities, and current events coming in, but there's so much more to geography. There's the cultural aspect, there's the physical geography, there's currencies, there's historical geography, economic geography, political geography. There's just so many different aspects. And so the way I like to think about studying, especially when you're starting off, is you should try to layer up your studying. So first start off with capitals, major cities, learn about bordering countries, mountain ranges, just the big picture, and then you should slowly transition into more details and more intricate concepts. Because as I'm sure a lot of you know, you should never study or never cram for an exam. And that also includes trying to learn all these complicated aspects when you still might not know where the countries are, things like that. So make sure you go step by step and really try to understand geography in a systematic fashion. And then here are a couple of resources. I know everyone has shared their opinion on these. These are personally my favorite. To start off, there's the Geographic Literacy, and there's also the Geography Bee Complete Preparation book, which is the Bee book as it's called. There's also the How to Ace National Geographic Bee, the official study guide with Alex Trebek on the cover. And then I'm sure, especially now that we are even further into the technology age, a lot of you want to use websites. And there's just a lot of great trivia sites. There's Fun Trivia, Sporkle, and also there's news sites like BBC, CNN, etc., and YouTube channels. Like when I was studying Geography Now was picking up. I think now it's one of the most famous channels, but there's also Vox Borders and other similar channels. I can send out more information if anyone's interested. And I wanted to also transition quickly into geography in high school. Obviously, people have talked about the Geography Olympiad in the past, but geography doesn't just stop there. There's social studies classes, particularly AP classes, where oftentimes a lot of my friends would be, especially like European history or AP human geography or world history, they would find that very difficult. And I think we had weekly map quizzes for human geography, which for me was a breeze because I'd done this in the past, and it was really good for synthesizing all this information. Extracurriculars like Model United Nations, Quiz Bowl, things that I've even continued on into college. And I think even more fundamentally, it makes you a global citizen. I think geography is just a tool to learn about the world, along with many other tools like science, math, whatever else. But I think geography is very uniquely positioned in that it teaches you about how similar we are to other people around the world, and that leads to a lot of nonprofit work and a lot of advocacy and things like that really makes one step out of their bubble. So I think that's also a very important fact. And the final thing is something I alluded to a little bit earlier. It really helps you with connecting with people, as I was talking about with my roommate, or even just at Starbucks when you're trying to wait for your waiting for your latte or something, and you're talking to the cashier. Just little things like that. I think really give a more meaningful experience to your life. So as I said before, I'm a huge proponent for geography, not just in high school, geography in your life as a whole. And then finally, I wanted to end with one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. And the other similar quote is, every journey begins with the first step. And you guys have already started. You came to this info session, you're doing NSF, so you have a lot of resources in your hand, and I really encourage you to take advantage, and not only take advantage of those resources and do well in competitions, but just really start to love the world, love learning about the world, and just learning in general, I think comes from learning geography as well. So yeah, I wish you guys the very best. Thank you guys so much. And as the other panelists said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send it in the chat and we'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Sravya. Thank you, everyone, for a great presentation about your journey and how you learned and things like that. There are a couple questions. One for Sravya. What do you want to do after college graduation, and will geography help you along the way?
Yeah, I'm still a college sophomore, so still a few more years, but currently I'm planning to go to medical school or some form of research, so grad school. And absolutely, like I think especially, I know Balu Uncle is in that field. I'm sure he has a bit more to say about that, but just being able to connect with people, and even like, for example, I'm doing research on tuberculosis right now. And it's a very technical research, it's computational research. So I'm looking at more the mathematical and informatics aspect of tuberculosis strains and antibiotic resistance. But there's also the aspect of this particular strain is more prevalent in South Asia. This particular strain is prevalent in this other part of the world, and why those strains are developing there. The rest of my team is very technical, and they're extremely smart people. I should say that first of all. They all have math or computational backgrounds, but I was able to provide this unique perspective of like, oh, well, South Asia has these particular tropical conditions that this other part of the world does not. So that's something we can explore as well. So there really is no end to how useful geography is.
Thank you. There was another question. What is the best way to study and how? Nihar, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, so I kind of outlined that process, right? So the first thing you want to do is like whatever resource you have, you always want to look at it and like, and I really stress this for like spelling also, like you don't want to just memorize it. Like you have to kind of think of this, like I said, it also applies to spelling. You kind of have to think of like words and locations and even people as like people, right? Like whenever you try to talk to someone or learn about them, you don't just go to their LinkedIn profile, memorize their statistics, and then just be like, okay, I know this person. You actually talk to them and understand them like for who they are. And that's essentially what you need to do for geography, because like I can tell you that makes it 10 times easier. Like just take that example, right? Is it easier to like know who a person is by like actually talking to them, learning about their experiences and like stuff like that, or just like you're not going to remember who a person is by just looking at their LinkedIn statistics. You're going to remember them like for how they impacted your life and what they did that's important to the world. And that's essentially what you need to do for geography. You need to learn how like a certain mountain affects a certain, or mountain range affects a certain people's way of living, how like why they built the city that they're living in, why is it that way, like why is it different from where you live, and essentially analyzing all those things. After you do that, you want to make questions to quiz yourself on those. And one big thing is like, one thing that I notice is like, usually when people make their own questions, it's just like, what city is southeast of this city? And there's just like a bunch of chains like that. It's not like, I think the unique thing that helped me, like when the geography bee was, my questions were always oriented towards like solving an issue. They were always like higher level thinking. Like sure, for mock bees and stuff, I needed to make it like, what city is southeast of this, but I would always add something to it, right? Like a cultural aspect or something that really helped me understand like I remember we had this one funny mock bee where it was just all about the culture of Nauru, and we just had a lot of fun with that. Like, again, I just want to stress again, it's not fun to just know that this is the highest point or something. It's fun to know like why, like how that formed and how that influences the people that live there. And so like that is the first main part that you need to do. And then after that, it's just, you know, easy. It's just like you learn about that really deeply and it just sticks with you. So that's like the biggest thing. And then the rest of it is just making, obviously remembering it, because your brain is not like a computer. It can't store all the information. But yeah, that's
Thank you, Nihar.
pretty much it.
So one of the questions is having a GeoBee coach helpful? And I think all of you have been involved in some way, shape, or form with coaching. And I know Atreya was coached by Sravya, and Atreya himself is a coach right now. From my perspective, it feels like you can only go to a certain extent with the coaching, and then it depends on what your interest is and how deep you want to study the subject. So I'd like to start with Atreya. You were a student and then you were a coach yourself. Can you share your perspective?
Yeah, so yeah, as you said, I was a NSF coaching student in third grade, in second and third grade, I believe. So first I took the junior course and then I took the senior course. And I believe the coaching experience kind of gave me like a basic platform to like build on. It gave me like basic information like about like the physical and cultural features of like the world. And also, like Nihar said, kind of like analyze how this mountain or this physical feature affects like a group of people. And after I kind of like finished the NSF competitions and went into the actual National Geographic Bee, which is like a lot more analytical. It requires a lot more critical thinking and solving world issues, like Nihar said. I kind of went on to the next step and joined the Geoid Foundation, which is a foundation aiming to increase geographic literacy across the U.S., especially since not many people around the world. I think there was a statistic that said more than half of the people in the U.S. couldn't locate the Pacific Ocean on a map, and that's kind of geographic literacy is a really important thing because, as all the other panelists said, it's really important to be able to connect with other people and basically solve world issues. And the Geoid Foundation and Coach Kumar Nandur, who is in the past, he has conducted several Geography Bee workshops for NSF, especially in the national and regional chapters. And that really helped me. It really helped me improve my knowledge base and really do better in the competitions. And yeah, the combination of the NSF coaching when I was younger and then the Geoid Foundation through my middle school years really helped me achieve what I've achieved in the Geography Bee.
Thank you, Atreya. Saket, the website you made, was it that you learned to do it yourself or did you get help? I want to do something similar for other social causes. Can you guide me? I'm 10 years old and I'm just starting from scratch. Would you like to take that, Saket? Yeah.
Sure. So I guess the beginnings of the website were from a dozen of us, so several of us having participated in all this geography contests and then knowing each other through that and having all these shared memories from all the different experiences we'd have while at the contest. So like the couple of days we'd spend going to different museum tours or whatever there. So from that, we were all decent friends, right? And then after we were all aged out of the Geography Bee, we kind of realized that our geography competitions, those may have been over, but we still really had this love for the world and this love for learning about the world. And it was all about sharing that. So then we got started on GeoGenius, and especially to help with geographic awareness, because like Atreya said, there are so many statistics that come out each year that are just really disappointing about the level of geographic awareness the general population has. So we sort of set out to try to fix that, try to help that. And so some of our team members were more experienced on the web development side, and then some of us started learning about it to try to create the website. So we did end up making it from scratch and then going through all the steps, and finally you have a pretty nice product up, which is, that's nice. It's fun to have.
Thank you. There are a couple students who have gone through the junior as well as senior coaching. The question is, how do you grow and learn beyond the physical and political features? You know, what do you learn? How do you focus on it? Sravya, would you like to take this?
Yeah, for sure. And just so I'm understanding the question a little better, they just want to know how to like do the more complex layers of geography.
How do you start to learn beyond the physical and political features that is probably covered in the coaching?
Yeah, of course. So I'm personally a huge proponent of trivia websites, just because I think they cover a lot of bases in terms of history, in terms of political geography, in terms of economics, in terms of currency and stuff like that. So I'm an advocate for fun trivia, Trivia Plaza, Sporkle, stuff like that. Also, watching the news, I think, is really good, not just for current events, but also synthesizing all this information that you have. You know, for example, like there's the winter storm in Texas right now. Like knowing, if you already know like the main cities in Texas, where they're located, that could help you in understanding what the extent of the winter storm damage is, why it's impacting that specific area of Texas, you know, stuff like that, and what infrastructure might be impacted as a result of that area being impacted. So I think that's a great strategy as well. Also, I guess basically what I'm trying to say is incorporate geography into everything you're doing. Because the other example I was going to give is when you go shopping or something, like if you see oranges, they're probably from Mexico. They're probably not from Canada, because obviously oranges grow in more warmer climates as compared to colder, but your blueberries are probably from Maine. So little things like that are also very helpful. I think, I mean, I'm sure the other people have stuff to add as well, but basically just incorporating geography into your daily life and really making it a point to see everything in a geographic lens.
Thank you. A lot of you have asked if the presentations will be shared, you know, if we can get links to the various websites that the panelists have either created or used. We will share all the presentations to all of you who have registered. It will go via email. We will collect the presentations from the panelists that they have, and we will definitely send it out to you guys, so don't worry about it. The specifically is for Atreya. How do you study for physical geography?
Yeah, so physical geography initially, when I was younger in the geography bee, it was kind of like a topic that I needed to improve on a lot, especially since in 4th grade, which was my first year in the National Geographic Bee, in the state bee preliminary rounds, I missed a question about physical geography, and that was what knocked me out of the National Geographic Bee that year. So I decided over the next year that I had to like really study harder on physical geography, and not just memorize, like say for example, memorize the terms, but also understand like how they form, why they form, and how it affects like cultures and the daily lives of people, as the other panelists have told. So I kind of used a combination of two resources for this. So the first resource I used was the Geography Bee Complete Preparation Handbook, which I think Sravya mentioned in her presentation. The main thing that I use this for is the book has a kind of glossary of like 200 or 250 physical geography terms. And I kind of use that to kind of learn about like the vast spectrum of all the physical geography terms. But then I kind of knew that I didn't just want to memorize them. I also wanted to go the extra step and kind of analyze them, as Nihar said. So for that, I used a book called the National Geographic Desk Reference. It's like a really big book. I think it has over 1,000 pages, and the first half of the book talks about everything about physical geography. So more of the analysis behind the physical geography features, exactly how they were formed, and they give like several examples about how it affects the daily lives and the cultures of people. So I believe that the tandem of those two books kind of gave me a complete understanding of physical geography. And yeah, that really helped me in the future years to answer not only pure physical geography questions, but also in general.
Thank you, Atreya. One of the questions that is, I think this is something that we all encounter, is the world is changing, so the geography facts don't always remain the same, whether it's the borders shifting or the rivers, the way they flow, or some things are drying up, things like that. Somebody has asked that if I read two contradicting things from different sites, which should I follow? How should I handle this situation? Saket?
Okay, so if you're studying and you see contradicting information on two different sites, I guess my advice in general for that would be to try to consult a different website, another different source, or maybe a different type of source. So if you've been trying websites and you're really split on what you're seeing, maybe try a book or a magazine or some other source to see if you're going to be getting anything else. And
I guess the question is more about what is the most reliable source for changing geography? Which is the standard? Is it National Geographic that has the facts right, or is there some other specific source? Nihar, do you have any input to this?
Yeah, so obviously if it's on National Geographic, like that's the word, that's the law, because I'm pretty sure National Geographic is the most involved like organization in terms of geography. I mean, it's in their name. But if it's not like covered by National Geographic, what I would do is like try to understand why there even is a conflict, right? Like why are there those two conflicts, like, and try to understand the viewpoint from each. Like obviously a huge debate is like, is the Amazon River longer or is the Nile River longer? And if you look at like the way that different websites outline like the source to the mouth, and then you can like make a clear judgment. And by the way, it should be the Nile River, but yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, somebody said, re-asked the question, what source, how do you know if a source is reliable or not? So I guess the National Geographic would be the most reliable source. And if it is over there, you can take that as a fact. So some of the other questions is from parents, how do you motivate your kids? I think that is like the biggest, mystery. Like initially, I'm sure all your parents registered you even before you knew what Geography B was about. But what role did your parents play in continuing to motivate you, or at what point did you start to motivate yourselves, right? Sravya, would you like to take this first?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. As Auntie mentioned, and I mentioned in my presentation, I also have two younger brothers, along with having coached through NSF a bit as well. I think the most important thing to remember for parents is that you can push your kid only so much. Like beyond that, your kid has to want to do this on your own. And it's definitely difficult. I mean, I'm not a parent, obviously, but I'm assuming it's very difficult to find that fine line between pushing them in the right direction and pushing them so hard that the only thing they want to do is not listen to you and not do geography or not do whatever competition that you want them to do. So I think fundamentally it just starts from introducing them to atlases, maps, things like that, watching the news. That was something my parents insisted on when I was very young, and it's a habit I still continue to this day, even though they're obviously not making me watch the news every night, even at this age. So really kind of sparking that interest through these other mediums that are not just study for this competition because it's good for you to not waste time. It's good for you to get off of like playing Call of Duty or whatever kids these days are playing. So kind of having that intellectual curiosity sparked is so important, not just for geography. I think for me, at least, my parents, like having had access to atlases and watching the news, things like that, that sparked my interest. And yes, they pushed me a little bit in the sense that they said, oh, you know, maybe you weren't super happy with your score this year, maybe you should really try it for next year. And that really was a motivating factor. And the reason I keep emphasizing that it should be intellectual curiosity more so than pushing is because that interest in learning about the world has carried me forward in so many other endeavors, whether that was, you know, classes in high school, whether that's my interest in applying to a place like Harvard for college, you know, the research I'm doing, stuff like that. There's only so far you can hold your kids' hands, so kind of empower them to love learning to the extent where they will want to do this on their own. And I know that's very high level. It might be very difficult, especially if your kid is very young. But and the other thing I think is also important to remember is that geography is personally my favorite competition, my favorite avenue, but it might not be what it is. It might not be the same for everyone. So whether it's math competition, spelling, science, there's just so many other avenues in the world. So really try to encourage them to love learning and try to pick a field that they enjoy, but don't push them to the point where they're going to start detesting the idea of even competing or even studying for that.
Awesome. That's really good advice. I'd like all the panelists to share, you know, what role your parents played in motivating or maybe sometimes demotivating you. And where did you pick it up? So thank you, Sravya, for sharing your perspective on that. I'd like to go to Saket.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing that my parents did when I was younger that I really appreciate to this day was really trying to immerse me in different types of things and see if I was interested in it, if it was something that I would like. So whether that be music or sports, or it doesn't have to be geography, but just anything in general to make you have some hobbies, some passions as a person. And for me, I found out when we learned that there was a geography bee that it did end up being geography, which was going to be my main passion, which I really just had fun with. So, and once we got started on that, there were so many times during my geography journey, even though you do have that interest, sometimes you're feeling at a low, like, oh, come on, what if I want to do this instead? Or maybe I'll just take a break from this, or things like that. Or if you go to a competition and you don't do as well as you expected, obviously it's not the end of the world, but in the moment, you might have this temporary feeling of, oh, come on, why am I doing this? But what my parents did was really support me along the way and really help me get up from that, and be motivated and find my passion again. And I'm so grateful for that because geography still makes me so excited today in almost everything that I do. So I think that's the role they played.
Thank you, Saket. Atreya?
Yeah, similar to the other people, panelists, my parents at a young age tried to, like, say, immerse me into different things, whether it be sports or at the start, it was kind of spelling. I was kind of interested in spelling. And geography was kind of, I would say, like an accidental passion that I found on my own, because at the NSF competition, since we need to do spelling, but then I saw my friend do the geography bee and I got really interested in it. And so once I kind of found that passion, once I kind of had like the quench to learn more geography, explore more, my parents really supported me throughout my journey. They just like quizzed me, and they just really supported me through times when I was not feeling as good in the journey, like when I didn't do well in certain, say, a mock bee or a competition. And throughout the journey, they helped me increase my geographic knowledge, whether it be through quizzing or whether it be through like showing me like certain news article or a certain stat or something like that. I'm really grateful for what they did throughout my journey, and without them, I wouldn't be here because they played such a large role in my journey.
Thank you, Atreya. Nihar?
Yeah, so the role of my parents in geography was like definitely a lot different than the other panelists. Like I would say their role in spelling was a lot like similar, because when I was a young kid, like I had a lot of energy, like I would run around the house and stuff. So my mom wanted to figure out something that I was like passionate in, so I would like sit still. Like I remember one of her friends was like, I'll give you $500 if Nihar can sit down for 5 minutes, and I couldn't do it. So then she put me in like so many things. She put me in like swimming, soccer, and all these things. And then like even spelling, like it wasn't something she put me in. I actually saw my sister do it, and I was like, hey, I can beat you in this. So then I did it, and then obviously I came across like more than just the rivalry with my sister, how interesting it. But in geography, my parents were more like just like really supportive. Like in terms of geography, I was pretty much like a self-learner. Like even when I got tied with Saket actually for 8th place in the 2018 geography bee, I was kind of sad because like the next year was my last year, and I can imagine how devastating that was for Saket. But like he said, parents really support you. And actually that year, my parents were like, if it makes you this sad to lose, then you don't have to do it. Like, why put all that stress on yourself? So like, I think they really helped me realize that geography I wasn't just doing it for the competition, and I was doing it for the passion. Like, every time I would lose or like have times of like frustration, they would always like, they wouldn't like force me to go through all that. They would like ask me, do you genuinely want to do this? And they would make me think about my passion in geography. And I think that's what's unique about my parents. Like they never like told me to like finish this, like even in spelling bee, they wouldn't be like finish this list or like finish studying this atlas. They would kind of just say, if you want to do it, then do it, and if it hurts you, then don't. So I think, but going back to the question, it's not how do I motivate my kid to do geography, because if you want your kid to do geography, that's like your dream, but like your kid is a human too. Like they should be able to do what they're interested in. So I think it's more of how do I nurture my kids' motivation and their passion, rather than how do I motivate my kid to do what I want. Because if your kid is interested in something and you can help them, if you can give them the resources to control that passion and use it wisely, they'll make an impact in the world regardless. Like it doesn't necessarily matter what field you do. Like we have so many problems in the world today that it doesn't matter what field that you're in, there's always something that you can do. So again, it should be a question of how can I nurture that passion in my kid, rather than how can I motivate my kid to do something. And they might be interested in geography, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. As a parent, I've gone through it with my kids, and I think some of the things that we've taken from that is, have the maps up in your house where the kids are, constantly looking for places. Anytime you're traveling or you're on road trips, have discussions about these things. Watch quiz shows like Jeopardy and other things. There are many ways in which you can involve your child. It's not always about winning, but it's about, I think, like one of the panelists said, about growing to be a global citizen where you can have a conversation with anybody, young or old, about what is happening in this world. So this was an amazing discussion that we had, and I think we answered as many questions as possible. I would like to offer a special thanks to each and every one of the panelists. You guys have an amazing work ethics, great passion, and obviously the future leaders. And we can't wait to see, what you guys will accomplish in your future. Wish you all the very best, and thank you for allowing me to moderate this panel. I will hand this back to Balu for the final comments. Thank you, everyone, once again.
All right, we're excited that in a few days, DCVJ will send you all links, so you'll see some of the details. Some of you had put in the chat box, where do I find some of these links? So we'll have those. In it, we will include, Sravya, you've probably never even seen this, but Harvard Business Review a few years back had an issue dedicated to curiosity and how curiosity in business makes a difference. And the same issue includes work from Angela Duckworth, who has written about grit. And grit has been identified as one key in success among those such as spelling bee champions. So a lot to be learned for parents. My experience was like Nihar's. My parents at some point said, "Are you sure you still want to do this spelling bee thing?" And I had to say that it was my interest, and obviously things worked out very well from there. So at some point, absolutely, it has to become the motivation directly from the kid. Daisy, if you don't mind going to the next slide, that would be great. So we're going to close just by reminding everyone that succeeding, whether it is at NorthSouth Foundation events, whether it is in life in general, success is a marathon and not a sprint. And we have this wonderful sketch here written by one of our NorthSouth youth volunteers last summer. And what it depicts is how empathy, education, and excellence come together. And so this ongoing marathon, which you can compete in over and over again, is you start by preparing for this marathon through our prep clubs, through our coaching, and then you can have practice runs, including our practice workshops. And then eventually you can compete in a marathon through our contests. And you may do well, you may do as well as your capacity allows, and you get your medal and you try again. And so in the meantime, everything you're doing, all of the fees go to help somebody who is in need. They might be in India needing a scholarship. They might be here in the United States needing a device to be able to go to school. And so you accept that challenge again and you go through the cycle. And in doing so, we keep setting our own personal record and improving ourselves. So that is a great way of envisioning how we bring empathy, education, and excellence together. So if we go to the next slide, if you want to be like all of these wonderful individuals who shared their stories today, it takes practice, and you get a chance to practice very soon. We've got here our workshops as well as our online regional contests. And so on the next slide, you can go directly to our website at northsouth.org. And there's a button to register for our contests right there on the homepage. So thanks to Savitha, to Desi, to Atreya, Saket, Nihar, and Sravya for sharing all of your, well, I won't say all, it would take years to share all of your wisdom, but sharing 90 minutes of your wisdom with us. And thanks to everyone for participating today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, when you're having fun, the time really runs fast. So we have to stop it at some point. So thank you for all participating, and thank you all the champions for your sharing your, in fact, your initial presentations made all the questions parents normally would ask become irrelevant because you already answered them. So it was a good start. And thank you very much for your insight, and wish you all great success in your lives as you move along.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye.
Take care.